Hey everybody, this is E. Marcel Pertut, and welcome to another edition of Verbal Submission, where we discuss all things mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. This is our first edition of the show in the new calendar year of 2021. We're broadcasting on January 3rd, 2021. Hope everyone had a good new year and had a 2020 was a rough year for many of us, and hopefully this new calendar year can lead to some better things in the world. But we also survived 2020 if you're listening to my show. And that's a blessing in itself that you are able to stay healthy enough and put yourself in position to be healthy. And that should never, ever be taken for granted. Our show today is focused really on all one thing. That's Wrestle Kingdom 15, taking place in the Tokyo Dome a few hours from now. We're going to preview all of the scheduled matches and maybe predict some surprises that may happen over the next 2 days of the event. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to thesportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can hear our previous episodes of Verbal Submission, as well as the Sports Inquirer show, where we discuss everything in the world of sports. You can also get our interviews and pressers from different sports personalities, mainly in Metro Atlanta, Georgia. If this is your first time listening to our show, we are based in Atlanta. So we get a lot of content from the city in that regard. Also head to our social media platforms, such as Twitter and Instagram. Search Sports Inquirer, that's all one word, and you will see everything that we have going on there. You can also go to our Facebook pages, which are The Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer. We got 2 pages on there. Make sure you check that out. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, and wherever you listen to your podcast. You can always do a search for us, and we'll be able to provide you with everything that you need. I think the best way to go through this is to really go through the card of Wrestle Kingdom 15 in the Tokyo Dome, New Japan's biggest event. It's a friend of mine, she always jokes about when I talk about I watch Japanese wrestling because I get very specific about it. I watch a lot of WWE and AEW, NWA. I probably watch some form of professional wrestling on video every single day. Now, sometimes I watch full shows like NXT for WWE or Dynamite for AEW. I'll watch Raw and SmackDown, a few minutes of that when it's on, and then just online and seeing everything. But the great part about the holiday season and having some more time off or a little bit more free time is December. Well, it really go back into the summer, into the fall, into summer. The calendar was very different this year for New Japan, which I'm sure we'll touch on throughout our preview of the show. But the good part about December is that we get heading towards the Wrestle Kingdom show, and we get all of the preview matches and things along those lines, and that's really, really fun. And this year's been a unique year for New Japan. We had the Wrestle Kingdom 14, which took place in the Tokyo Dome last year. We saw Naito win the double championship, first double champion in history of the program. And then when I say double champion, that is the heavyweight champion and intercontinental champion. He won the belt, kind of winning the 4-man tournament between Jay White, Osprey, and Ibushi. So he kind of won. Out of that, he emerged as the champion. Then we saw him face off against. We saw Kenta interfere in the celebration. That led to a feud for a little bit, but Naito was able to retain. We ended up having and that's when we started. We had the delay with the pandemic, like everyone else, and I think it was about 100 days of no wrestling in New Japan, and they came back. Evil was the champion. He was able to defeat. He won the New Japan Cup to win the title shot. That's when Evil defected to the Bullet Club, and that set the tone for a lot of different things going on. Evil he did defend the title against Takahashi, but in the end, Naito got the belt back in the summer, and that's when we ultimately started seeing things coming back. We had the different competitions starting up. The Super J Cup, we had El Fantasma win that. The Super Juniors tournament took place. Takahashi was able to win at Hiromu. You started seeing those take place. The World Tag League or World Tag Team League, which was won by Guerillas of Destiny. We started getting the tournaments to come back and get more activity Even Kenta, I gotta acknowledge Kenta. He was able to win the New Japan Cup and USA version of it, and he's the rights holder. And we'll get to his match against Kojima later on. So during the summer and in the early fall, we finally started seeing these matches coming back up and competitions taking place to set the tone for the year. And then finally, we had the G1, which was ultimately won by Ibushi for the second consecutive year, and he lost the rights to, and this is weird, with the G1 Climax 30th edition. He won the competition. He beat Sanada in the final, but then he lost the rights to Jay White, who's going to fight in the second night. Yet he still gets a title shot against Naito. So in essence, what they're trying to do, what they're going to do, is in the first night in the main event, it'll be Naito, the double champion for a heavyweight and IC belt. He's going to face the fight Ibushi, who won the G1 Climax title. Whoever wins that then faces Jay White, who won the rights to the challenge. A little bit odd and confusing in that regard, how that's going to go. But when we get to that match, I'll break that down a little bit further in more details. So we'll start with the very first night of the competition. There's an open match, the New Japan Rambo. I would really like to see some of the young lions that we've seen. We've seen Gabriel Kidd, Imura. We've seen some of the young lions really step up with the way the G1 worked out this year. Normally, we see the preview tags of the matches that are going to come up throughout the competition to open up shows. But with the G1 I'll say maybe not half, about 40% of the competitors that would normally be in the G1 competition were unable to be in Japan. So there are no preview tags. The Young Lions opened up all of the days in the G1 Climax, and I thought that was a really good exposure for those guys. And I think it'd be a really nice gesture for them to be able to open up the competition, because the second night is going to be opened up by the junior heavyweight match, and which we'll get to when we're previewing it. But I think this will be, right now, as we're looking at the schedule, it's open. I guess they can maybe go with I've seen maybe they can go with the KOPW, King of Pro Wrestling, which is currently won by, which I could see that would be Bad Luck Fale in that regard, or some other some guys in that. But I said I'd like to see some of the young lions get a shot there. Since there's no match to predict, there's really no prediction that needs to go with that. The first, I guess, official match that we're going to see is that match to determine the number one contender for the junior and heavyweight title. And that's going to be Hiromu Takahashi, who won the Super Juniors, versus El Fantasma, the Super J Cup winner. That event took place in the United States. It's been Takahashi's year. I remember 2 years ago we saw that horrific neck injury against Ryu, which could have been a career ender and really could have eliminated him from competing again. But then we saw last year's Wrestle Kingdom. He had that, I thought, maybe one of 3-4 best matches of the year against Will Osprey, and him regaining that title and that junior heavyweight title. But then ultimately it was dispatched of it, and now he doesn't have it anymore. But I think what they're going to do ultimately is this is a time for him to really elevate himself back into the main picture. El Fantasma from the Bullet Club won the Super J Cup, that one night tournament. You look at him, a very talented guy. Him and Ishimura have been tag champions in the junior heavyweight division for a long time. Fantasma, second consecutive year, winning the Super J Cup, so acknowledgement for that. But I'd be very, very surprised if Takahashi does not find himself the winner of this match. It'll be a really good opening match. Obviously you get the Chaos Bullet Club dynamic, so that's always fun. But I think ultimately you're going to see Takahashi find a way to win that contest. Second match is for the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team title. You have the current champions, the Super Techers, Zack Saber Jr. and Taichi, a team that's emerged as one of the top tag teams in all of professional wrestling, and different paths to it. Taichi was a guy that has been in New Japan for a very long time. And by the way, Suzuki-gun is the group that they're part of. Taichi, a guy that was, I thought, kind of mid-card at best. He does a little singing entrance and he usually has his female escort with him. She has not been around. It'd be nice to see her come around, maybe be at the Wrestle Kingdom. But I thought he was maybe a mid card guy at best. He may compete for, maybe gets IC championship opportunity, every 6 months or so, but not much going on. Zack Saber, a guy who is had a very successful career in the United Kingdom, been Rev Pro champion in the past. A guy that was struggling, I think, to find his footing in Japan. Those two have come together and really put a really good dynamic as far as being the heavyweight champions. But they are facing arguably the best tag team in history of New Japan and the Guerillas of Destiny with Tongaloa and Tamatanga. Really the OGs, especially Tamatanga, who is the OG Bullet Club leader member. I'm very intrigued to see if he starts to assert himself a lot more because we've seen the different leaders from Kenny Omega, AJ Styles, Jay White, someone say even Evil is leader of the Bullet Club. Tama Tonga has been through all of those incarnations, even back to the Finn Balor days and all that stuff. So you look at, or Prince Devitt, and you put all of that together, and as a Guerrillas Destiny, I want to say 6-time champions, or they're going for their 6th championship of the tag division, which would be an all-time record. They really took advantage of, or they had some curses against them. One, all these years, they never won World Tag Team League. They won that for the first time ever, and they've never won at the Tokyo Dome. I think this is the year that they do it, and they find a way to win. I think it'll be a good match, good technicality. Whenever you have strikers like the God, Guerrillas Destiny, and Tai Chi, he likes to use his kicks. That's a good contrast with Zack Sabre, who uses the holds and the submission techniques. So that's always a fun deal. And Tama Tonga, he looks so weird without the long curly hair and the big beard. I don't like the clean shaven. Well, he could do whatever he wants. But it was just I taken aback by this clean shaven look. And even now, when I look at him, it's like he doesn't look like the same guy at all. But you have to see that they are going to be, a very good group. And also, I think Bullet Club, whether it's Gato or Dick Togo, these guys are always have deception on their side as far as who is going to win in that. And I think the Bullet Club, I think it's going to be very Bullet Club centric nights in Wrestle Kingdom. Because as I'm going down the line, I'm picking a lot of Bullet Club people to win. And that's not intentional. I mean, I like Bullet Club. They're my favorite faction in New Japan. But I'm trying to look at it from a very objective perspective. But you just look at who the winners are and who's really coming into it in a good way. And I think that's where Bullet Club's going to do fine. And that carries over into the IWGP US Heavyweight Right to Challenge contract. And that's between the current holder, Kenta, and the challenger, Kojima. This is supposed to be Juice Robinson's spot, but he injured his eye. And I've been trying to research if it was kayfabe or if it was a shoot that he injured his eye during the last match. We've seen Kenta use that briefcase and hit Juice Robinson multiple times in the face, and he might have hurt his eye for real. And he took that last shot about a week ago, and he looked pretty bad. But point is that Juice Robinson is out, and Kojima, the former champion, he's won all the belts in New Japan. He steps into the spot. I think Kenta is going to retain the rights holder and win the belt. I mean, Kojima's an OG, respect to him, but I don't think it's his time right now. I'm still holding out hope that Jon Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose, is going to find his way into Japan to put this to bed. We've not seen him in New Japan for months. First of all, I thought that there was some conflict between his contract currently with AEW and getting to Japan or doing anything along those lines. And then follow that up with the pandemic. He hasn't even been able to fight in the United States because his wife, Renee Young, who we all know, she had the coronavirus and everything like that. So he was isolated at some point during the year because of that stuff. So altogether, he has not been able to make an appearance in New Japan for a very, very long time. And, they strip you of the belt and everything like that. But I think there has to be some closure to this belt. I don't know if Ambrose or I call him Moxley or Ambrose, whatever. We all know who we're talking about. But I think if Moxley is, I have a feeling he's going to make his presence felt after this match. I don't know if it's through video. Maybe they can do a build up to a future match. And this is what New Japan does as also is that while all this is going on, they like to announce different tours, different events that are going on. I would not be surprised if we hear an announcement of an event in the United States within the first 3 months of this year, even February or March. And that'd be a very good time for Ambrose not to even have to go across the Pacific Ocean into Japan because if you go to Japan, as we're recording this show, you have to isolate yourself for 14 days and everything like that. So it's a lot going on in that regard. We haven't seen him make an appearance in AEW. I mean, I know he made the video tribute to John Huber, a.k.a. Brody Lee. And I should have mentioned that earlier in the show. And I think when we do our next show, when we do a recap of New Japan, I'll devote more time to the legacy of Brody Lee and just the man that he was in and out of the ring. But he passed away earlier this month, or actually in December. We're in January right now. But point is, he did a video message during the tribute show to Brody Lee. And he was very emotional with that. But as far as wrestling goes, we have not seen him in an AEW ring in a few weeks. And I think that he may possibly be in Japan right now, keeping a very isolated, doing an isolation situation in that regard. But if not, I just think that Kenta needs his opportunity to fight for that belt. And then if Moxley drops it to Kenta, that wouldn't be a surprise. And then Kenta, who can travel and be in Japan and everything, can go about his business, and we can go on from there. But to have him carry that briefcase for about 6 months now, it seems like it's just ridiculous. We understand the circumstances or everything that's going on, but I think it's best if they just let Kenta get the belt and they can move on from there. Because as we get towards, we're lacking a lot of mid-card titles. I know we have the Never Openweight Championship, and that's cool. But with that, the thing about the Intercontinental Championship was that it was a belt for a lot of them. I won't say mid-card because that sounds insulting, but guys that are not in heavyweight title picture, or even the junior heavyweight title picture, they have a belt to fight for outside the Never title. The U.S. Championship could be a really good opportunity for that to take place. But if you have the current title holder not even in the federation, that's a problem. So we'll see what happens there. We'll wrap up the first night. Well, we have 2 non-title matches before we get to the big main event, but ones that carry a lot of significance. We have Tanahashi facing the Great Okan in a special singles match. The emergence of the Empire, led by Will Osprey, defecting away from Chaos and turning his back on Okada, has led to a new faction led by Will Osprey and a Great Okan. Jeff Cobb's in there as well. But we'll focus on Great Okan, a guy that was a young lion and did his excursion in Europe and is now back into New Japan as the Great Okan. I like the concept. I like that the Mongolian influence with the chops and his look. I find it very appealing and intriguing, something a little bit different. But I said he has been put on a rocket ship to stardom. I said with this group with Empire. And Tanahashi, who is maybe the most significant, influential Japanese wrestler of the past 20 years, he is now in a spot to maybe pass the torch or to give the rub to the Great Okan. I'm not saying Tanahashi is... the John Cena of Japan is a great comparison or for those of you not familiar with Japanese wrestling, but if you follow professional wrestling in the United States, you know who John Cena is. That's who Tanahashi is. That's an excellent parallel in that regard, just as far as legacy, well-knownness, carrying that promotion through some lean years into some really strong years, the most known guy in that federation. Obviously, he's taken I won't say a backseat, but guys like Okada and even Ibushi, I can argue even Jay White and Naito have maybe surpassed him as far as on the card or as being known, but Tanahashi gets a lot of respect. I would like to see Great Okan get the win here, especially since he lost his first big match to Okada a few months ago. But I think Tanahashi may find a way to get a victory here, as far as maybe giving him one last big victory in our right now. They could save it for New Year's Dash, which I think would be a smarter move. Because I think Okan is a guy, he's not a championship contender yet. This is where, if you had the IC belt separated from the heavyweight championship, this would be a great opportunity or that for a guy like Okan to find his way into the, or even a Will Osprey. Those guys can find their way into not being the heavyweight championship, but for guys who are relatively new or guys trying to establish themselves as main eventers, this would be a good belt for them to have. But the belt is two belts. This is the way it is right now. But I think that I want to see Okan win, but just for the development of him and the build-up. But I think that Tanahashi can win this title or win this match, put himself in maybe title contention in the future. The one match out of all of these competitions that it's a coin flip. I have no idea which way they can go. Is Okada versus Osprey. As I mentioned earlier, Okada, leader of Chaos, while Tanahashi, as I said, was the most, I said all superlatives about him the past 20 years. Probably the last 5 years, it's been Okada from his matches with Kenny Omega, which is really how I got into New Japan over the past about 3-4 years ago and getting involved in watching Japanese wrestling, to just he's been, some argue even to this day, is the best technical wrestler in all of the sport. And it's very tough to argue against it. The man has every move, every skill set, the psychology. He is at the top of his game right now. But he's not in the title picture, and it's really been a turn for him to now have a personal feud against Will Osprey. Osprey, who did very well in Europe. Osprey's the reason. Well, Okada really is the reason that Osprey is in Japan. Brought him into the country, made him part of Chaos. Really was a mentor to him, like a big brother. And Osprey, when he was a junior heavyweight, had a nice run there. He's moved to heavyweight. He's decided to make a turn to go for his own, and that led to the turning on Okada. And I said the Empire is it's Bullet Club's got a lot of aspects going to it. But I think it's good when you have an international faction with an English speaker that adds to the diversity of the promotion and gets cutting English promos is a good thing. And Osprey does that obviously in a very good way. And I think Empire can really make its presence felt. So I think Osprey can talk about the rocket ship. This time next year, Osprey could be main eventing and going for the heavyweight title or, even defending it, just the way things shake out. But it's also Okada. The guy is, I said, maybe the best wrestler in the entire world. And have him lose to Osprey would be, I would say, and Osprey, he's almost, I don't say he's Teflon, but win or lose, you could always put him in a title picture and find a way to put him in that spot. But with Naito, Jay White, Ibushi, those guys have really taken the next level up. If Osprey loses this match, he takes a tick down. So I really don't know who is going to win. I think Okada ultimately will win it because I think there could be more intrigue with Osprey trying to get over Okada. And if he surpasses Okada right now, the return isn't as intriguing. But I'm looking very forward to this match because, as I said, Okada can do anything in the ring, and Osprey, we've seen a lot more ground attacks from him. He still can do his flips, and he's gained the weight, and he's still able to keep his flexibility in his aerial skills, which has been a really good aspect for him. But I think that Okada ultimately finds a way to win this matchup. But as I said, on paper, it could possibly be the match of the entire event. It's going to take place over the next 2 days. And then finally, night one concludes with the heavyweight and intercontinental double championship match. Naito comes in as the champion, challenger Kota Ibushi. Before all this stuff started developing over the past 2 months, I thought it was going to be Ibushi's year. I mean, the guy's been around for a very long time. I personally am not a big fan of his. I mean, I like the kicks. I think his style's okay. I mean, physically, he's got the body type is strong, and he's got that going for him. Charisma wise, I think he's lacking a little bit for me personally. But I think they've been building him up as if it doesn't happen, if it didn't happen last year, you would think this is the year he ultimately gains the redemption and makes it happen. But I still look at Naito, who was my MVP of New Japan Wrestling this past year, as I said, from the winning the championships at Kingdom last year to regaining the titles back from Evil in the summer to what he's been doing over the past few months. I thought Naito was my MVP overall, and I think we ultimately I the Naito Jay White dynamic I think has been building up for a very long time, and I think that's where you get the best foreigner, non-Japanese wrestler who's been talking a lot of smack and a lot of crap, and is the biggest heel in the division in New Japan. Him just waiting in the wings, and you would think Naito would be the guy for him to face, and that would make the most sense. I'm ultimately thinking that, and then also when Ibushi lost that briefcase that said he had the right to fight for the championship, I can't see them backing down on that, and him ending beating Naito and just disrespecting the whole deal. I just think that in the end, Naito finds a way to win this match. But if Ibushi is a victor as well, I'll put it this way: if Ibushi wins this match, he's gonna end up. Oh, I'm watching football. Look like Tom Brady almost took a spell. Anyway, if Ibushi wins this matchup, he ultimately, I think, walks away with the championships over the 2 days. I think if Naito wins it, Jay White is going to be the man who emerges with the belts. Yeah, I know that sounds convoluted and a little bit funky and weird, but I think that I'm picking Naito to win this match and ultimately lose it to Jay White. But I think if Ibushi wins this match, he's going to be Jay White. I think that's it fits the storyline. It fits the comeback aspect of him being down and out, but ultimately finding a way to win. And I think if you have Naito winning the first night, it will lead to Jay White finally being the champion, and the coronation of it ultimately leads, I think, with beating a guy like Naito, who he's been feuding with for the past few years. So that's night one of the competition. And I'm looking at night two. Hold up. We're pulling it up right now. All right, here we go. Yeah, night two. I'm looking at the night two's a lot longer. Let's see. We have the Stardom. Okay. There we go. Now it makes sense. We have Stardom. That's good for Stardom. They're going to the women's Japanese wrestling promotion is going to have 2 exhibition matches to start night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. That's a good look. And this is an example. I myself am not familiar with the Japanese women wrestlers in Stardom. And they may not all be Japanese. I should say the wrestlers in Stardom. I'm not familiar with them. This would be an excellent opportunity for me to watch them and to learn more about it. So there are some names on here that I do not know any of these women, but I think that's a very cool way to introduce them to this is the most spotlight that New Japan gets. So good on that. I'm looking forward to checking those women out. And then the first match is the first technical match is going to be the KOPW 2021 4-way match. So it's 4 guys in this competition. You got to assume Yano's going to be in it, the current champion. I guess Bad Luck Fale. You'll think he would be in there because he was unable to get the championship after the body slam ring post endeavor competition that Yano ultimately got over. So that's good. So you're gonna see those 2 guys in there. You're probably gonna see Hanma in there. That'd be a very good look. The 4th guy, that's a wild card. I don't know. Could be a good time to bring back a guy who hasn't been around in a minute, or maybe a new signee, or maybe one of the young lions. He sheds that sheds that look, and maybe we see a Hikaloa who has been doing his thing in Europe and in the United States. The younger brother of the Guerillas of Destiny. Maybe he is in that match. Very intrigued by what we see there. So once again, we don't know who's going to win it or who's in it. Okay, I'll say this: if Yano's in it, that guy is a snake in a good way. He finds a way to win these matches. So I think he'd be a major contender for it. Bad Luck Fale, you gotta think he'd be a guy as well. Once Bullet Club OG, maybe he finds a way into winning that match. But we'll see what happens there. That can go any direction. The second match is for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. We have Kanemaru and El Desperado, the current champions, facing Master Wato and Taguchi. I think this one's pretty straightforward. I think El Desperado, especially with his finals appearance in the juniors against Takahashi, he took a step up. He's had a very good year. And Kanemaru is another OG. I think they find a way to win this match. No disrespect to Taguchi, our coach, and Master Wato, who is a young lion who's now firmly entrenched as a full-time wrestler in New Japan. It's not their time to win this. I think Desperado and Kanemaru can win this, and that'd be very interesting. And there's plenty of competition with the juniors for them to fight, but I think this one is pretty straightforward. Another straightforward match, I think, is going to be the Never Open Weight Championship match between current champion Takagi and Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb of the Empire signed full-time with New Japan. So we get the title shot. Very good look. Takagi is a guy who I think just represents that title very well. A never open weight older gentleman by wrestling standards. He's in his 30s, which is crazy to say that's old, but the wrestling has changed where you would have guys in their peak, in their late 30s, early 40s winning championships. Now guys are in their 20s winning major titles. It's a very interesting deal, what's going on. But I think Takagi finds a way to win this match. This will be maybe the shortest and most physical match that we're going to see the entire weekend or over the 2 nights. You have these matches where where if Okada and Osprey, it's going to go at least 30 minutes. Now it's earlier in the card, so it may not necessarily go a full traditional. Now, if Okada was in the main event, we know it's going to be 45 minutes, 50 minutes in that regard. This match, you don't have to worry about that. If this match lasts more than 15 minutes, I will be shocked. I think these guys are bruisers. They're just going to smack each other and kick each other and just fight the entire time. But I think Takagi ultimately finds a way to win this match and to retain the belt. Now we can get to some interesting contests. We only have a few left. Is Sonata and Evil, the singles match. Obviously, former tag team partners. They won a lot of. They won World Tag League together. World Tag League together. They've had a lot of success. Obviously, the faction of Evil to the Bullet Club has led to a natural rivalry with Sonata. I think Sonata is one of those guys. I think he wins this matchup because I see him being in the title picture. Whoever emerges from this Jay White, Ibushi, a Naito setup, I think whoever emerges from it, I think Sonata is a natural first contender for that competition. We already saw Sonata as a finalist in the G1 this year, or the last version of it, ultimately won by Ibushi. But I think Sonata is a guy that's going to be right there in title contention. I think he finds a way to defeat Evil. Now we know about Bullet Club with Evil and then Dick Togo with that darn kendo stick and all the interferences that we're gonna have going on. But Bullet Club can't win every match and over the next 2 days. So I think ultimately that's where you're going to see Sonata earn the victory here. Now you have Ishimura, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match, which is going to be against with the current champion Ishimori against either Takahashi or Fantasma. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I think Takahashi is going to win the first match, and I think he wins this match as well. I think Ishimori is a good champion. He carried the belt well and respectfully, but I think that ultimately it's Takahashi's year. It's his time. And I think this is going to lead to a very long tenure and run for Takahashi to win this belt. I think it's going to be a very good matchup. I think it's very intriguing. I really don't want to see Phantasmo versus Ishimori, the all Bullet Club matchup, because those competitions, whenever you have guys from Suzuki or from Chaos, they fight each other. We haven't seen yet how it works out for even Los Incurables de Japón, Naito's group. When those guys face each other, they go hard and battle each other and go for the best. When you see the matches with all Bullet Club contests, there's always seems like there's a deal or some trickery where it's like, okay, you win this match, and then I'll get the next one, or I'll let you fight for a little bit, and then you fight for a little bit. I don't like the tone of those matches, and I don't want to see the junior heavyweight title be between two Bullet Club members. So maybe the fan in me wants to see Takahashi sweep and win this, but I think out of the three, I don't think Phantasmo is going to win, come out as a champion through it all. That I don't see. Ishimori, maybe. But I said, I think it's Takahashi's time to do it. And then finally, we wrap up the matches with the heavyweight and intercontinental double championship match. Jay White, who is the rights holder, he faces either Naito or Ibushi. I think Jay White, he's my favorite wrestler in the promotion. And I think the reason I say that, him and Naito are right, like 1 and 1A for me. And I say that the fan in me, if I'm not looking at it like objectively as an analyst or a critic, but if I look at it from just pure like watching it, I think White's personality, he brings a good heel persona into the profession, and he's been backing it up lately. You can see, and it's interesting because you look at the old Jay White from 2-3 years ago when he was a young lion. I didn't see this in him. But I think he came back. The switchblade gimmick works. I think you see physically, he's really built himself up. He's had a lean look. He's always had a lean body, but you've seen him built. He's more muscular now. I think it suits him well. I mean, he looks in peak condition. He looks like a champion, and that's the thing. And when I say that, there are different ways you could do that. I look at an Ibushi and Jay White. They look like they could enter bodybuilding competitions. I mean, they're cut. They got the physique. That's like, wow, that's a professional athlete with the abs and the big arms and everything like that. And then you look at Naito, who looks like he just stepped out of the sauna and looks like he just rolled out of bed. And yet he's probably the best wrestler I think of the past year in all of sports. So you can have any type of look, but if you see what Jay White has done, I think with the hair, he's grown the beard. Having Gato by his side helps because Gato's a natural heat seeker, especially what he did to Okada. Okada and Gato were best buddies for years. So, and chaos and everything like that. So for Gato to turn on Okada and join Jay White in the Bullet Club, adds that natural heat. I like how Jay White talks about how he single-handedly sold out Madison Square Garden. Maybe the New Yorker in me. Was born and raised in New York, so I'm a mark for anything New York related. I'll admit it. So every time he mentions he single-handedly sold it out, that goes back to 2 years ago when they had that super card with Ring of Honor, and it was a sellout, but it really was more for Okada and Ring of Honor and a bunch of other things. Jay White ended up actually losing the heavyweight title that night to Okada, but the fact that he still says that line, I get a pop out of it. It's funny to me. But going back to everything, the whole package. He has been a guy that is from the system, but speaks English and has a natural heat that you don't really see too much from guys in Japan. And it's, I think, a really good aspect to it. So I think that he has really elevated himself to a high level. You could say the same thing about Naito, a guy that, as I mentioned, and here's a fun fact: Naito and Ibushi are the same age. If you looked at those two guys, you would think Ibushi is, and they're both in their late 30s. I want to say they're around 35 or 36. If you looked at those guys, now Ibushi's face, you can tell he's aged a little bit. But if you look at Ibushi video and pictures from 5, 10 years ago, the body looks exactly the same. I mean, that guy is a genetic freak. He looked like he's his mid 30s. He has the same body as he has in his mid 20s. It's incredible. But then you look at Naito, it's like the guy's gotten 20 years older. I mean, you look at Naito facially. I mean, he's in shape. He's not a slob, but just the hair and the way he just carries himself, you would think the man is in his late 50s. That's intentional, obviously. That's the look that he goes for. But that's a fun fact for you. If you know those two guys, look them up. If you're not familiar with all this Japanese wrestling I'm talking about, do a side by side of those two, and you would never think that they're the same age. But anyway, I think Naito has found his way into emerge from. He's an interesting story as well. Started off in Japan through the system, was struggling to find his footing. Went to Mexico, and really was, and they downplayed a little bit, but maybe some racism, and that they talked about his eyes. He was a foreigner in Mexico. They call him all different names. That's why when you see him go down on one knee and then put his eye and act like he's trying to open his eye, that was a critique of him because he was called, the Asian stereotypes you can imagine that we all know about. But he found himself in Mexico, started a faction, and really made himself into a major player in Japan just by kind of reinventing himself as kind of a nasty wrestler. Now he's a face and everyone likes him, but he has really emerged himself and changed himself into a major player in that regard. All right, so saying all of that, ultimately, who wins the championship at the end? As I mentioned, I don't think Naito emerges as a champion out of it all. As I think of Ibushi wins it the first night, he completes it and wins the championship the second night. If Naito wins it the first night, he is not going to keep it, and Jay White ultimately wins. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's the preview of today's of everything that's going. It does happen later on today. Preview of Wrestle Kingdom. I'm looking forward to watching it, like all of you. We'll have a recap of everything that happens and when it finishes up. And until next time, good fight and good night.